Hi, I'm Adriana Marshall, and I am answering 5 submitted questions. The first question is, as a Scrum Master, how do I keep the development team on track during a daily Scrum? The first thing that comes to my mind is development team, because this was removed in the 2020 Scrum Guide to eliminate the concept of a separate team within a team. So I'm going to change this question to, as a Scrum Master, how do I keep the developers on track during a daily Scrum? One of the most difficult things is trying to keep this event to 15 minutes. And as a Scrum Master, I'm accountable for establishing Scrum as defined in the Scrum Guide. So I get the awesome job of making sure this event is valuable and efficient. The first thing I like to do is remind the developers of the purpose of the event that we're trying to make better. So in this example, the Daily Scrum event is we're there to inspect our progress toward our sprint goal and quickly come up with a way forward. And we may have to adjust the sprint backlog during this meeting. Here are some things that I've tried. The first thing, we had a developer who rambled on and on and on, and we all agreed at 15 minutes, we're leaving. Everyone walks away, it's done. And the developers quickly realized 3 people didn't talk during this event. And they continuously worked on improving their communication to be more clear and concise and to be efficient and focus on the sprint goal. Another item, which I kind of already hinted at, another thing that I've done is we focused on the sprint goal and used our Scrum board to help guide us to make sure that we're on track, talking about work that impacts the sprint goal and what we need to do to help each other achieve the goal. Question 2, we don't use sprint goals. What's an example of a good sprint goal and how I can help us start using them? I've worked with a team that didn't use a sprint goal, and it was really challenging because we lacked focus and collaboration, and we were working on separate initiatives. And in one of the retrospectives, someone called out, we don't have a way to measure if our sprint was even successful. How can we move forward? And we agreed that let's start using a sprint goal. It's really going to help us. The next sprint planning, we focused on the topic, which was, why is this sprint valuable? Now, we had already discussed that before, but really formulating a sprint goal based on that question and using our product goal, which at the time was to create an easy way for pet owners to share information about their lost pet. So how do we as a group, we had an open discussion as a group, how do we get there? What's our first stepping stone? And out of that conversation, we came up with the sprint goal to create a pet profile. It gives users the ability to have already saved data. So if they lose their pet, they're not in a frenzy writing misinformation. They already have that pet profile, and it's a stepping stone to get us there. So that's why that's a good sprint goal, because it helps us focus on the value delivered to the end user. It's flexible and it's a stepping stone toward our product goal. And that's what we target and we inspect every day at the Daily Scrum. So that's another way you can start using them to stay on track. The next question, our product owner is more of a BA writing requirements. He has some good knowledge of the product, but doesn't have real authority to make decisions. And that is slowing us down. Any advice? I'd recommend working with your product owner on how you can help get the organization behind him. That's something that I've practically done. And we've come up with tracking data. So a few of the things that we tracked were the length of time it took to get a decision and the product backlog items it delayed, the sprint goal missed because of decision delays, and sprint review complaints. What is our product owner saying at the end of it? What are our stakeholders saying? So we track those things and we shared that data with the product owner's manager. And we asked if we could do an experiment by giving our product owner authority to make these final decisions and reduce some of these issues that we were seeing. And we continue to track the data sprint over sprint and provide that with the manager. And fortunately, based on the improvements, we were able to continue with the product owner having the authority needed to help the Scrum team and the organization. The next question, And final question, or second to final. We have a separate testing team that does testing on our software in the next sprint. So testing can be part of our can't be part of our definition of done. That's okay, right? I believe one of the most valuable things about Scrum is getting to done. Once something is done, we understand the process, the progress that we've made, and we can get valuable feedback and also bring value to the organization. When you're not getting the increment done, you're losing out on that. And I get it. Not every organization has moved toward the ideal state of having a cross-functional team, but the team can still move forward to get something done in the sprint. By having testing occur in a different sprint, it's really risky, and we've made an assumption that everything's okay, and it makes it really hard for us to improve on our process. When I've dealt with this exact same situation, there were a couple things that I've tried. One, aligning our testing team, their Scrum events, if they do have Scrum events, with ours, and their sprints with ours. And we've invited them to ours and vice versa so that we can be integrated as much as possible, although we're on separate Scrum teams. The other thing that I've tried and I talked to the team about is, what's stopping us from testing our own work? Do they have tools that we don't have? Do they have information that we don't have? And we realized, no, they don't. So we added testing to our definition, came up with automated testing that we could do so it wouldn't take up much time, but we still had confidence that our work was usable. Okay, this is actually the final one. Usually we just have the Scrum team at sprint reviews. Stakeholders are too busy. Our product owner is able to accept or reject our work without them. So I think stakeholders aren't really needed. I've dealt with the product owner using the sprint review to accept and reject the product backlog items that developers consider done. We discussed having a formal acceptance of work packages by the product owner is not foreseen in Scrum. There's a definition of done that already tells us we're done, right? We talked about it in the last question. Now, a feedback loop is certainly needed, but it doesn't need to be done in a sprint review. So we can kind of separate that out. The sprint review, having only one person there be the product owner is really risky because this is one person representing all users. I had a product owner that came from a big social media platform and we're a safety app, and he wanted to change things to be more social friendly, more social app features. And that was his idea. And we weren't actually getting stakeholders in our meeting. So that became the direction we started to go down. Then one day we were talking, I was like, oh, you can do surveys. He was like, I can do surveys. I'm like, yeah, talk to this person. You can do a survey. He did a survey. And the number one thing users said they did not want was the app to become a social media app. And the number one thing they did want was more safety content. So I talked to a few stakeholders, asked them, why aren't you coming to this meeting? And they really didn't understand the purpose was a working session between developers and stakeholders. So they were really used to the old way of communicating. It's a one-way door. You guys do whatever you guys do over there, and we'll just see it later. But I encouraged them to come and talked about how they can help us make our process, our app significantly better. And one of the things that came out of that was during 2020, we were able to provide more safety COVID information and where people can get help, whether that's testing, whether that's food, because there are a lot of food banks that were out of food, and other information that was really helpful. And that came from one of our stakeholders who previously didn't attend the event. All right, that was the last one. Thank you.